Seems like my light's shining right on my head. Hang on. There we go.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this Preservation Resource Center of New Orleans online class. My name is Nathan Lott. I am the Policy Research Director and Advocacy Coordinator for PRC. I'm pleased to be joined tonight behind the scenes by my colleague, Danielle Watson, who's our Virtual Programs Assistant, and by Craig Brouillette, who's going to walk us through this class, who's a veteran teacher in our Renovate Right curriculum. And now during the pandemic, we're bringing that to you virtually and putting it up on our YouTube channel. So if you're not already following PRC on YouTube, be sure that you go there, look for us, follow us, and you can rewatch this class and you can watch others in this series. Also, I hope many of you are members of the Preservation Resource Center, but if you're not already a member, go to our website, prcno.org, and join. You'll get a discount on your holiday house tour tickets, so that's a bonus. And you'll also get our monthly magazine, Preservation in Print. Very excited about not just the issue that's on the newsstands now, which looks at buildings that narrowly escaped demolition to be reborn, but also the forthcoming issue that's looking at our historic commercial corridor, Magazine Street, and how it is surviving through the pandemic and the local businesses in historic buildings all along that street. So if you care about New Orleans, you love historic places, you belong with the PRC. So we hope you'll join. And while you're there, you can look for some swag as well. And as I said, you'll find our archive of online classes on our YouTube channel and linked on our website, prcno.org. So without further ado, I want to introduce our guest speaker instructor for this course, Craig Brouillette, who is a managing partner with NOLA Housing and has a deep background in banking and finance. And if you were part of our online class about developing a pro forma and a budget, you remember the mantra, always have a contingency fund. So when you are working on a renovation project or working with a general contractor, knowing that scope of work and having really clear lines of communication is so important, especially if you're on a budget, which we all are in some way. So Craig's going to talk us through the basics, and hopefully we'll all leave feeling much better prepared to take on something like a renovation or a restoration. Thank you so much, Craig, for your time to be with us tonight. All right.
Thank you for having me, Nathan. I'm going to share my screen, verify that this works for me, okay? It's my first Zoom call.
Sure thing.
Is that good?
I'm still seeing you, but not your screen.
Let's see. I'm sorry, Nathan.
That's all right. Yeah, so when I scroll down to my cursor, I get a little green box that says share at the bottom of the Zoom window. If we need to, you could email me or Daniil your presentation and we could.
Yeah, I sent it to her earlier today.
Okay.
I apologize. I practiced this earlier and it was working.
It always works in the dry run. The test run always goes off without a hitch.
All right, if Daniil wants to pull it up, she can. That's fine.
All right. Okay, I think she'll hopefully get it going here in just a second. This is why we are, for our holiday home tour, pre-recording all of the house tours.
That's why I'm a contractor. I'm not a tech person. but
Yeah. Well, I think people have become much more gracious and patient with things
absolutely.
like this throughout the pandemic. I have
So I
more than once,
apologize, everybody.
yeah, more than once had to repeat myself because my internet didn't cooperate at the exact moment I was making some point. My audio went out. And yeah, I appreciate all of our participants' patience here while our behind the scenes tech folks get the presentation pulled up.
Hang on, I might have just figured it out. Did that work?
Oh, now I see your screen and PowerPoint. Yep.
Oh, wow. I had to undo some privacy stuff. I don't know why I was on there. So,
Aha. Well, thank you.
good.
You're looking good. Great.
Man, it only took me 2 minutes to figure it out. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. And I apologize for the delay. My name is Brouillette. Nathan said I own NOLA Housing. That's my development company. I'm also a commercial and residential contractor. My company is Monarch Design and Build. I've been in construction business for about 8 years and I've touched about every type of construction project you can touch. I've done small updates, additions, camelbacks, new construction, even renovated a 200-year-old 4-story building in the French Quarter. I'm going to go over some of my experiences tonight and what I think, how to set it up so you have a good working relationship with your contractor. Open communication upfront, not a bunch of surprises and everything like that through the process. So this is some of the stuff that I'm going to cover tonight. Setting a budget and creating a scope of work. Questions asked your general contractor when you're out getting bids. How to pay for your renovation. Typical timeframes for doing different construction projects. And then at the end, I'm going to share a list of some of my tradespeople with you. And then also a Q&A. So any questions you have, you can save them to the end and I'll be happy to answer them. I'll also share my contact information. If you want to email or give me a call, again, I'd be happy to answer any questions after this. So first things first, you are looking to buy a house or you bought a house and you're needing to do some renovations to it. I think setting a budget is a good starting point. First things first, how much is your home worth now and how much will it be after you renovate? Why that's important is you don't really want to pour more into your house than what it's going to be worth after the fact. A lot of the projects that I take on, and that's really popular, are additions. The reason for that is because they make a ton of financial sense. You can go out there and, add on a couple hundred square feet and you're going to pay $150 a square foot for that addition. When it's all said and done, that extra square foot is going to, appraise $200 to $300 a square foot. So you're almost doubling your investment by adding on to your property. How much can you qualify for on a renovation loan? If you have the cash to pay for a renovation, good for you, congratulations. It's not the case for every person. So it's important to go talk to a mortgage banker and see what you can qualify for. Number one, before you buy a house also, and then, before you start meeting with contractors, because you don't want to go out there and, think you have a $200,000 budget to do this renovation, but then you can only qualify for $75,000. Try and keep the expectations realistic up front. You can get, a lot of this information for free. How much is your home worth now? If you have a realtor, ask your realtor, what's it going to be worth after I do this renovation addition? They'll pull comps all day long to give you a good idea of what your property is going to be worth before and after. Same thing with your mortgage banker on how much you can qualify for on a loan. Some other things to keep in mind when you're setting a budget, must-haves, nice-to-haves. Nice-to-haves might be that $1,000 dining room chandelier. You can build a house without having that in there, right? And adding that's not going to add a ton of value to your property. Must-haves, open concept, big primary, bedroom, bathroom, things that add value to your property, and also that fit your lifestyle. Adding in as a factor for your budget priorities, or what gives you the most bang for your buck. Putting money towards kitchens, bathrooms, functional living spaces. Those are going to give you a better return on your property than putting it towards other items. It's not saying it's not don't worry about all those other renovations, but those three right there give you the most bang for your buck when it comes to renovating a property. Be realistic on the scope of your project, and if your grand design exceeds your budget, scale it back. This is a big thing, and really when it comes to setting a budget, a lot of people go online and see all these great, nice inspiration pictures on house and Pinterest and all these different websites. Just keep in mind that those pictures that you see on there are on there, and they're popular for a reason because they come from $1 million houses a lot of times. So just be realistic when it comes to setting a budget and everything like that with your property. Another big thing is a contingency. Every project, every addition, every renovation, no matter how accurate I try and get the bid up front, always has some type of change order on it. And whether it's from a surprise, like, hey, we opened up the wall and found, a ton of termite damage, which now has to be fixed. We couldn't see it before because it was all covered up. Or going through the process, things happen. Someone says, you know what, I saw this picture last night. Now I want to do this or use this instead. That's why it's important to have a contingency in your budget before you start. The worst thing that can happen is you start a renovation and you run out of money. That would be, it happens all the time. People get stuck and they get 90% done. They're like, you know what, I'm out. I did these change orders. This surprise happened. This surprise happened, which cost me money. That's why it's important to set at least a 10% contingency in your budget. If you don't use it, guess what? You don't get charged. That money goes back to you. After coming up with a budget with a contingency, it's important to meet with an architect and a general contractor to come up with a scope of work. This is some budgeting ideas of some houses that I've done, and I'm putting these out there just to kind of give you an example of pictures you might see online, what the real cost might be, and what you can kind of get for your money. So this was in a new construction house, and this one pretty much has all the bells and whistles. It's got the custom cabinets, a big built-in refrigerator, nice appliances, custom hood, waterfall island, marble backsplash, double upper cabinets and everything like that. Basically anything you can fit in the kitchen, this one has. I'm going to tell you how much this one costs in a few slides too. This was another kitchen, again, super nice, waterfall, not custom cabinets. These are pre-finished, not a built-in fridge, but still a nice fridge. And this was another idea. This is also pre-finished cabinets, tile backsplash, regular appliances, no waterfall island, and I still think it looks amazing. So the cost of these three kitchens, the first one with all the bells and whistles was $50,000. The second one, $16,800, and the third one, $11,500. I think every single one of those kitchens was beautiful. The reason that I put this out there is, again, when you're looking at inspirational pictures and you see all these things out there, it's good to share them with your contractor, but also just keep in mind like how certain things can totally blow your budget. And, you can still get a beautiful kitchen like you had in 2 or 3 for $30,000 less than you did in kitchen 1. The other thing is the person in kitchen 1, spent $30,000 more. I don't think they got that much added value on their property at the end of it. So it's just things like, hey, that's what they wanted, and that's what they got. But when it comes to a renovation making financial sense, these are the kind of things to look at to help you make a good decision on it. So other budget items that people don't always think about, when you're changing out windows or doing an addition and have to add, windows, there's obviously different types. And, there's more expensive, less expensive. You have wood windows, which are the historic look. You've got vinyl, and then you've got wood clad windows. Doors and trim, what height doors are you going to be putting in your property? Solid core, hollow core. I'm going to cover this a little bit more when we talk about architectural plans and everything like that also. And then what type of flooring is going to be in your property? More and more popular is the pre-finished engineered floors. But still, if you're doing an addition and your property has the historic hardwood, it is nice to match that. There's a difference though when it comes to installing them, and also the cost of sand and stain and everything like that. So once you're getting through the budget, you want to create a scope of work. And the big thing to keep in mind is the more accurate and the more detailed your scope of work that you're providing to your general contractor, the more accurate their bid is going to be. And that's why my biggest thing is when you're doing any type of big renovation or addition or moving walls or anything like that, it's very important to meet with an architect and get some type of plans drawn. You know, that way there's just no confusion when you're going through the building process. Plans at a minimum should include your demo, what you're framing, your MEP, which is like your mechanical, that's your AC, your electrical, your plumbing, drawings of the house, like the actual elevations. They can do elevations of your cabinets, and they'll also spell out like what type of doors and what type of windows. So they can get super detailed with these plans, which again is going to help you get accurate bids from your contractor. And also it's going to make or ensure when you get plans that when you put this out to bid to a few different contractors, that they're all bidding the same thing. They're all bidding the same plans, the same doors, the same windows, which means that your bid should come more in line as opposed to not having plans going out there and having one contractor bid, you know, a nice high quality door and another contractor who's trying to win the bid. And he knows that price is a factor, going to be bidding something lower because he's trying to win the work. When you get plans and this gets listed on your plans, they have to bid what's on the plans. So I'm going to give you some examples of what is included typically with architectural plans. You know, the first thing is your demo schedule. It shows what walls get torn down. This was a side-by-side shotgun double, and we were going to be camelback in this property and making a 1-bedroom rental on the left side, and then the right side and the back would be the owner's unit. So this shows, you know, what all walls are getting torn down, so that when I'm looking at bidding it, you know, this thing say, okay, these eight you know, walls are being torn down, the back of the house is, you know, coming off. I know exactly what I have to bid and what I have to do for the demo. So it's going to give an accurate bid there. This is what the framing plan for that house looked like. So again, you see where every wall goes. You see the dimensions, the measurements. This is good as a client also because you can look in these rooms and you can lay out furniture as well. Like, hey, look at this primary bedroom. I have a big king size bed that's, you know, 10 foot wide. Is this going to fit in my plans? All these things, you know, figuring this out in the planning stage of your renovation is big because you don't want to get, you know, halfway through the construction of the house and figure your furniture doesn't fit, or this wall's in the wrong spot, or something along those lines. Your door and window schedule. So your architect will lay out exactly what type of doors, how many, what size, hollow core, solid core, the manufacturer. And he will do the same thing for your windows as well. That way, you know, when you give this to me, I'm going to go take it to Jefferson Door or some other company like that, and they're going to bid exactly what's on these plans. And the other contractors who you're getting bids from should do the same thing. Whereas if you don't have this type of schedule on your plans, or if you're doing a renovation or an addition without something like this, and you're getting bids from, you know, different contractors, it's not always clear what type of door they're bidding. And there's a big difference between, you know, high quality, you know, solid core door and a cheaper hollow core door. And when you look at, you know, one bid and, hey, this, you know, contractor's bidding $8,000 for my door and this other contractor's bidding $5,000, let's go with the guy bidding $5,000. Well, a lot of times there could be a reason for that. If you have this on your plans, or if you spec what type of doors you're going to be getting, they all have to bid the same thing, and they all should come pretty close in line. And if there's a big difference, well, then you should be able to explain that difference, or the contractor should be able to explain that difference. You're also going to have elevations of the property. That's just a front, side, rear view. This was a property in the Irish Channel that I bought, and there was 2 previous additions done. You can kind of see them from the side view, and they were not well done. So I was going to be, you know, taking those down and changing the roof line. So when you're in the design phase, having elevations of the property gives an idea of what the property is going to be, you know, look like as it is, and also after. So the after look was this, which obviously looks a lot better. But also when you give this to a contractor is going to know now what to expect and what the house has to look like when they're finished with, construction. And, say, hey, they finish framing the house and you look at your elevation and it doesn't match. Let's say the roof line is, 2 foot below where it should have been. Well, guess what? It was on my elevation. You quoted it. You have to follow the plans. If they got it wrong, the contractor has to basically fix it for free because it was on the plans, unless they spec'd something different in their contract, obviously. So elevations are a good thing to have. You can also get elevations of your kitchen. And I show this as an example because I had one client who was very specific about what kind of kitchen, they wanted in their property. And, they can go through and they could have told me like, I want shelves on the left. I want my range on the right. I want my sink with 3 windows, which I could have done a quote just off of that. Right. But when they give me something like this, I can quote exactly specifically what they're looking for. And one contractor to the next can still vary on a few different things. For instance, on the left side of this kitchen, they wanted big drawers, right, to hold their pots and pans and everything like that. Well, drawer cabinets cost more than just the cabinets with the 2 doors that you can open. So again, if you just put something out and say, hey, I want to update my kitchen to a contractor, contractors know that a lot of people just win the job, whoever gets, the lowest price a lot of times. So you could have a contractor bid, let's bid doors on everything because I know my price is going to be cheaper than actually going out and putting a functional kitchen out there that has a mix of both drawers and doors. So if you have an elevation like this included in your plans, or if you have some type of drawing you can mock up or show a picture of to your contractor, again, you're going to have a much more accurate bid of what your finished product is actually going to look like. And you know what, when I build this kitchen, and I do a walkthrough with my client and we're looking at this elevation, and if something's off, then I have to fix it because I agreed to build based on the elevation, and they were very clear up front with what they wanted, and I bid it, right? And if I get it wrong and it's my mistake, I have to fix it for free. And these kind of things avoid conflict with your contractor down the road. Like nothing's worse than the contractor thinking he's building one way and your expectation is another way, because in your mind, you saw this kitchen and you wanted it built this way. He goes out and he builds it another way because he didn't have a picture or in elevation like this. Well, that's going to create conflict. And it's not that the contractor had a bad intent or anything like that. It's just he thought he was doing what was right, and obviously it's not clear or not what you wanted. Having elevations like this avoids all of that. You show me a picture, I have to build exactly what this picture is unless we agree to something different. It assures you get what you want. And, again, having this, and when you're putting it out for bids, you're going to have more accurate bids with elevations like this. So this is your MEP. This is probably the second or third most important thing that are going to get included on your plans. You can also draw this, or when you're walking through your house with your contractor, you can kind of mark this stuff out. But basically this shows where your AC units are going to be, your ductwork, all your light fixtures. So if you're putting can lights, if you're putting a chandelier centered over your dining room table, well, we need to know where that's going to be. These plans show that. This also shows your plumbing. Hey, I have a big shower with the rainfall head and a handle set. So this is going to show all of that stuff for your contractor. This even goes as far as detail to show where the switches are, where the plugs are, and everything like that. So for instance, while that's important, when you're walking through a house and you walk into a bedroom and you open a door, well, if the contractor builds and puts your switches behind where the door opens, that's not a very good design. But if you don't specify where that needs to go by giving them plans, then you can't really say they're at fault for putting a switch on one wall or the other. Whereas on here, all these little, I hit that accident. This shows exactly which wall the switches go on. It shows which wall all the plugs and all the outlets go on. It shows where every light fixture goes. It shows where every plumbing fixture goes. Again, there's no room for error for your contractor. If you put something on the wrong wall and you agree to this plan, you have to fix it for free, which is great for you, right? Because it ensures you're getting what you're paying for. Not providing this level of detail, can lead to mistakes, miscommunication, and just again, conflict with your contractor because things might not be clear. So I get it. Not everyone can get plans, or you might not have a renovation big enough that it justifies getting plans. But architects typically cost, $1 to $1.50 a square foot, sometimes more, to do plans like this. So, that's what $2 a square foot. So that's what, $4,000 to $5,000 expense. Just in the amount of conflict avoidance and, having accurate bids, you're going to save construction time frame. You're going to have more than that in savings dealing with your contractor by having accurate plans than not. So to me, anytime you're doing any kind of major renovation, it's always worth it to have it. If you're not, then again, the more detail you can give to your contractor, the better, because it's going to allow them to give you an accurate quote and also going through the construction process to build exactly what you want. So once you've created a scope of work, the next thing to me is to go out and get bids. And typically I say you want to get 3 bids from different contractors. And those bids should generally all come in pretty close. If one bid is way high or way low, it's important to ask why and see what the difference could be. But typically my experience is, they all come in pretty close when you're providing the amount of detail that I'm telling you to provide. How do you find a general contractor? Ask people hey, have you dealt with any contractors? I'm looking to update my kitchen or do this addition. Have you worked with anyone or know anyone who has? That's one great way. My highest recommendation is ask professionals in the real estate business, realtors, mortgage bankers, suppliers, people who work at 84 Lumber, Home Depot, blah, blah, blah. The reason that I say that is my biggest source of business is referrals from realtors. So when I'm doing a job for a client, that client isn't the only person that I'm working for. I'm also working indirectly for my realtor. And if I do a bad job for that client, they're going to go back and talk to that realtor and say, hey, Craig didn't do as good a job as I was hoping, blah, blah, blah. Do you think that realtor is going to be sending me business anymore? Highly unlikely. So talking to people in the business and getting referrals from them, I think is a huge source to find good contractors. And chances are they've already seen the work that we've done. And you want to hire someone with experience. Also, driving around New Orleans, like you're going to see signs out there. Whose signs are you seeing? What type of property do you have to renovate? Are you looking to do a Camelback renovation? If so, if you're driving around town and you see a Camelback renovation with a contractor sign out front, well, hey, they're doing one. It's probably a good idea to call them and try and get a bid from them. So those are just a couple of ways to find, general contractors. And, of course, always searching online, checking online reviews, social media for, pictures of their work. All those things work, but I think firsthand recommendations are the best. So things to provide your prospective general contractor. Ideally, I know I've been hitting this really hard. You have plans drawn that you can hand to them. And really, that's 95% of what a contractor needs to bid your job. You can also provide them with inspirational pictures. I'm sure, when you're going through doing a renovation, you're going to be saying, hey, I like this. Hey, I like this picture. I like this picture. Share all that. You can create a Dropbox folder, a text thread, anything like that. Share that with your general contractor. The more information and the more detail you can give them, the more accurate your bid's going to be. If you're doing a smaller renovation and you don't have the budget to get plans drawn, I've had people, just handwrite room by room. In my kitchen, I want to do this, this, and that. In my bathroom one, I want to do this, this, and that. And then walking through the property, I'm looking at their list. It's very, it's easier for me to give a bid when they give me the type of detail room by room like that. Other things to tell your contractor: what is your budget? and how you plan on paying. I say that. I know a lot of people don't want to tell their contractor what their budgets are. Like, hey, I'm looking to spend 150,000 because they expect the contractor to come back and bid $149,000, right? The reason that I say that up front, when someone tells me what their budget is, and say I go through and I do my bid on it, and the bid comes back at $170,000. Well, I could just send that, or since I know that they're trying to be around 150, I can look at that, and having experience renovating a lot of properties, I can look at cost saving areas to try and get that number down to get close to where they want to be. That's why I think it's important to share that up front. And it's also important to share how you plan on paying for your renovation. If you're paying cash, that's one thing. If you're getting a construction loan, that's another, right? Because the bank is not going to give you funds up front typically to pay for your renovation. So what they're going to expect is the contractor to go out there, start renovating the property, and then after they've done, say, the framing, to do a bank inspection and then collect a draw on it, which means that your contractor has to have the ability to float that work, to pay for those materials, and do everything like that. So some contractors can handle that, some contractors can't. Most contractors have supplier lines of credit, like I have a line of credit with 84 Lumber, blah, blah, blah. So if I want to go frame a house, I can get the lumber from them without paying for it. And then 45 days later is when that payment comes due. Well, that's plenty of time for me to frame a house, right? Get a bank inspection, collect the draw, and then pay off my line of credit. If your general contractor doesn't have that type of flexibility and you're getting a construction loan, there's going to be conflict, right? Hey, I need a deposit of 10,000 because I have to go buy more 2x4s, or I have to go buy your kitchen, or your countertops, blah, blah, blah. Saying how you're going to be paying is important. And also, like when I work with people, I never expect money up front, no matter what it is. It's all as work is completed. I think it's the fairest way, and it sets both of us on the same path of trying to get a good finished product. Because I know for me to get paid, I have to do the work in a good manner. I'm not saying never pay a deposit, but never pay a significant portion of your budget or your contract upfront as a deposit, please. Timeframe deadlines. If you have 3 months and your lease is ending and you're getting kicked out of your apartment and the house has to be done in 3 months, you need to be very upfront with your contractor about that. We all have different schedules. We all get more busy at certain times than the others. If your contractor can't make that time frame, he needs to be upfront with you about that. And you need to tell him, like, look, I have 3 months and that's that. There's no going over it or anything like that. And creating a selection schedule is the last thing. I say this because selection schedule is certain things like, hey, I want to use these type of plumbing fixtures, this type of light fixtures, this type of door hardware. You don't always know that up front, but again, the more detail you can provide, the better. And the reason why I say this is important because I've had jobs where clients have used that $5,000 dining room chandelier, and it took my electrician 2 days to install it because there's 100 different crystals on it. Well, if I would have known that going into the job, I probably would have added a little install cost to that chandelier as opposed to just a normal chandelier, which we can install in an hour. So certain things like that, like if there's stuff that's going to be a more detailed install, sharing it up front, again, creates conflict on the back end. It creates change orders. It's going to give you a more accurate estimate up front. So once you provided all that to your general contractor, usually it takes about a week to 2 weeks to get bids back. And different contractors might bid the job different ways. There's a fixed cost contract. That is doing a specific job for a fixed cost. That means I'm going to build 2-year plans, and this is the cost that I'm going to guarantee based on your plans. There's also cost plus. A lot of people say this is like an open book method. So whatever my costs are, I'm going to show you my invoices. I'm going to pass that on to you. And my profit is going to be a markup on top of that. That's why it's called cost plus. Typically, it's a 10 to 20% markup on top of whatever your costs are going to be. What's the best way? I do fixed cost. I like that. Typically my clients like that because they know exactly what their costs are going in. If lumber cost goes up, which has been happening recently, I mean, lumber costs have gone up 50% over the last 3 months, but I bid the job at a fixed cost, I have to cover it. Whereas if it was cost plus, guess who gets that increase? The client has to pay for it. So I'm not saying either one, but these are, the two ways. I like, again, the fixed costs. Sometimes a mix goes well. For instance, like you can do a fixed cost upfront contract, and then any change orders that occur because, hey, we found surprise termite damage, or, well, you know what, I got a bonus this quarter and I want to now add a deck onto the back of my property. You can do change orders maybe at a cost plus. So that way that, your contractor's not marking you up majorly after they've already got the contract on the change orders. So you've gotten your bids back. You're trying to make your selection of who to hire. Do you go with the lowest cost? Do you go with the middle? Which one do you go with? These are some other things to ask to just kind of make sure you're making the right decision in addition to the price. So first thing, are they licensed? Louisiana makes it very simple to find out if a contractor's licensed, and you can find out if there's any complaints or violations or anything like that. The website is lslbc.louisiana.gov. And there's two types of licenses. Home improvement contractors, they can do renovation projects under $75,000. The full residential license can do any kind of residential project there is out there. Commercial license, any type of commercial project out there. So one thing, make sure they're licensed, right? Number two, are they insured? Your general contractor should have workman's comp insurance and general liability insurance. We hate it, but injuries do happen sometimes, and you never want to be the one on the hook for paying for someone else's injury that was working for your general contractor. And if an injury ever does happen, trust me, the attorneys are going to go for everyone. So make sure your contractor has insurance to cover you for injuries in case they do happen. You as the owner, your typical homeowner's insurance policy doesn't usually cover your property while it's being renovated. So just as a note to you, you would need to get a builder's risk policy, which covers renovating your property. And once you're done with the renovation, you can switch it back to a typical homeowner's policy. Some other questions. Can they do the job, right? What's their experience? You have a 100-year-old Creole cottage. Have they ever renovated a 100-year-old Creole cottage? Or have they just done some ranch style houses in Metairie? It's very important to ask these questions. And I say even more important to see the work that they've done. And the reason is old houses present a lot of additional challenges that new houses don't. There's a big difference between houses, even built just 50 years ago and houses built today present. Different size lumber, different types of electricity, different types of plumbing materials, all these things that if your contractor has already dealt with these properties, they know what to expect going into it, and they know how to account for any little surprises that might pop up. So it's important, make sure that they've handled your type of project before, ask for addresses, ask for pictures, drive by them. Anything you can do, the more research, the better. You need proof, don't just take their word for it. Again, driving by their properties. Typically people live in them, but hey, if they have a good relationship with past clients, typically those clients will let you walk through those properties and kind of see the work that they've done. If they've, renovated a 100-year-old cottage and that's what you have and you can walk through one, if you like how it looks, then typically you're going to like how your house looks. Other things to consider. Do they have workers on staff? Do they do the work themselves? And what type of work do they sub out? So what that means, for instance, like me, I don't do plumbing work, right? So I have a specific plumbing contractor that I use for plumbing work. Same thing with electrical, same thing with, AC work. Typically, all the specialties get subbed out, right? Does your contractor have a project manager, a superintendent? That's important to ask, because you meet with the owner of the company, let's say you like them, right? Well, that might not be the person who is handling your renovation throughout the process. They might get the contract and then pass you off to their project manager, who then is responsible for the day-to-day of running your construction project. If that's the case, I think it's important to meet that project manager and make sure that you get along with them, right? I mean, it's you're gonna be working with this person daily on renovating your house. I think it's important to get along with that person who you're gonna be working with daily, not just the owner. Who's responsible for supervising the job site? Again, is it the owner of the company, or is it their project manager? How will you communicate? How's the contractor going to communicate with you? When are walkthroughs going to be scheduled? Technology is huge in construction nowadays, I think. For instance, I use an app called Builder Trend. You can download it on your phone. When we sign a contract, there's a project, and we create daily logs. So, hey, I can go take pictures that's going on, upload it to my Builder Trend app. The client gets a notification, and they can see the pictures of the work that's being done on their house that day. Other things that can happen in there, you can see the schedule typically. You can see change orders, which do happen. Are we going to be doing weekly walkthroughs? Is it daily walkthroughs? Like, how are you going to keep me up to date on the renovation of my property? Who will handle the permitting? Let the contractor handle it. We all love New Orleans, but it's not always the funnest to go deal with the permit office. Find a contractor who will do that for you. Can they get the job done in your time frame? I mentioned this before. Make sure that they're not too busy, that your job's not going to be put on the back burner, that they can finish your renovation in the time frame that they promise. Who will handle the communication of changes or decisions? Again, owner, project manager, or someone else. Do they have credit lines with suppliers? Which suppliers do they work with? Again, this is what I talked about before on how you pay with your renovation. And if the contractor is going to be able to, front the money and front the materials to do the renovation, so you're not having to pay a big chunk of money up front. So you selected a contractor, right? Next thing, get a contract. You should always have a contract, no matter what, spelling out the work that's going to be done at your house. In addition to the contract, some things that you should add to the back of it, and both you sign, copy of your plan. If you don't have plans, a detailed scope of work with the prices, a draw schedule, how they're getting paid, right? You should specify how change orders are going to be handled. Fixed costs, is it going to be cost plus? How am I going to know, if I'm over budget on my property? It's to specify on there that the contractor has to tell you up front about any increased cost. In your contract, you can add a completion deadline with liquidated damages charged to the contractor. But that means if you tell your contractor that I need to be in my house in 3 months, and they say, okay, I can do that, you can put that deadline in your contract. And if the contractor goes over that deadline, you can charge them a daily fee, right? $100, $150 a day. It's completely normal to ask for that. And it's just one additional thing that you can have in there to hold the contractor's feet to the fire, that they're going to have your property finished when they say they're going to have it finished. If you don't have this in there and the contractor says it's going to take 3 months and it takes 6 months, what's your recourse? That's why it's important to have a deadline with damages, with liquidated damages in there. Warranty terms. We all want a contractor who's going to stand behind their work. New construction, they're bound by law to what the warranty is. In a renovation, there's not necessarily anything like that. So it's important to talk to your contractor. Hey, what kind of warranty do you offer? Typically 1 year, right? Workmanship. Some things come with longer warranties, like your AC. AC should have a manufacturer's warranty, 10 years. Your roofing, material should have a 30-year warranty, other things like that. So it's just important to talk about all this kind of stuff up front and include it in your contract. Don't just take, someone's handshake word for it. Include it in your contract up front. It's going to avoid conflict down the road and, just ensure a smoother building process. Change orders, I do want to talk about this some more. Again, we'd love to avoid it, but this has happened on every job that I've ever done. And there's no intent one way or the other, right? We don't go into a job underbidding it with the plan to charge the client a change order and make up the money there, right? A change order is any work above and beyond the scope of work that is in your contract. It can be from a surprise, the termite damage that I mentioned before, or it could be from you, the client, adding on additional work. You should spell out how the change orders are handled, and you should spell out that you have to be told of any increased cost upfront before the contractor does it. The worst thing that can happen is contractors flying through trying to build your house and finds termite damage and just fixes it, right? And then sends you a bill for $1,000. Yeah, you wanted the damage fixed, but it would have been nice to know that before they did the work. So again, just having that spelled out before, how change orders get handled, I think is important. And even just talking about it, like, hey, ask your contractor, how do you handle change orders? And just see what their answer is. And I think having that worked out before is a very smart move. The completion deadline clause that I talked about before, in my contractor, I do $150 a day. And, all the time, it's hard not to say yes, meaning like, a client's like, hey, I know you said 3 months, is there a way to get me in sooner? Like, the client's excited, wants to get in, everything like that. It doesn't always happen, but making this a real deadline and adding a penalty to it means that the contractor is going to be motivated to hit your deadline. And, also, if he does go over, it gives you a little bit of credit back towards your cost to at least compensate you for the inconvenience of going past your completion deadline. Warranty, again, I did mention this a little bit before. Find a contractor who's going to give you a year warranty, stand behind their work, come back and fix things that are a problem, and have this listed in your contract of what they're going to be offering. These are some contacts of people or subcontractors that I've used. And I share this, right, because sometimes people just have a small little thing they need to get taken care of on their house. You're more than welcome to call all these people, tell them, you got their number from me. All these people are reputable. They've all been in the business for a long time. They all do really good work. And I think they're going to share this with everyone so that you can save the PowerPoint, or if you want to write them down. And again, if you'll have questions about your own renovation, feel free to contact me about it as well. Other than that, that's what I have. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them now. And
thank you so much, Craig. And folks that want to type their questions, I don't believe that they're able to ask them over the audio, but they can type them into the Q&A box, and I'll be glad to read them.
Okay.
And some of them I see have also typed them in the chat box. Here's one question. Can you give a ballpark cost to demolishing an addition and then adding a camelback? For example, like the Irish Channel property you showed.
Right. I typically say 140 to 150 for the new construction, for the addition part, is a base cost. Every property is a little bit different, so it might have a few things here or there. And when I hit on this before, additions, camelbacks make a lot of financial sense because you can pay that, and then when you're finished, they appraise for $300 plus a square foot. That's doubling your money. And also you're getting to pick, the finishes of your property and everything like that. But that's like a typical base cost.
Okay. Here's a hopefully simple question. On the slide you showed of a plan for the mechanicals, the MEP, one section appeared more shaded than the other. Was that because of a camelback, or what was the rationale?
Yeah, correct. So that was the addition part of it. And it was shaded because the architect was specifying something in that specific section. because we were tying into old with new. So it's hard to see on the slide, I know, because these plans are made for big paper. But that was the addition part. That's why.
Yeah, and sometimes the Zoom resolution leaves a little bit to be
I
desired.
know.
You're trying to squint at the screen, but thank you. That's great.
No problem.
Mary says that was an awesome presentation, and she has a question about insurance. Does the GC's warranty also, I guess not insurance, but warranty, does the GC's warranty also insure a subcontractor's work?
Everything in the scope of work for the contractor is covered under their warranty. So what that means is if the contractor quoted plumbing and he hires a subcontractor and the plumber does that work, yes, the contractor will warranty that. If you go out and get your own plumber and it's not included in the contractor scope of work, his warranty will not cover that. No.
Okay. Thank you. That's great. Yes, a couple questions about whether we posting this. We'll try to get it posted up tomorrow, and the link is in the chat box for where you can view our past programs. Here's a question from Courtney about subsurface inspections. Do you typically handle that if it's required, for a foundation, or is that something that someone who's building should get done before they start looking for a contractor?
Inspections. So I can do only a certain amount of inspections. Like, you're talking about subsurface, which might be like a video pipe inspection. You should definitely do that. Yes.
Yeah, there's a little clarification here. What about for an existing structure for the with a foundation that might need some work or repairs, or to be made structurally sound to add a second floor camelback?
If I was looking at it, and if it's something like I've done before, I'd be pretty confident, quoting it or bidding it or telling you what needs to be done. If it's not, I'd bring in a structural engineer or an architect. If that answers that question, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I was typing when you were talking. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
I'm trying to answer one of these questions in the Q&A.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm trying to juggle here back and forth as well.
Right.
So Elizabeth's asking, does it make sense to slowly renovate, to get plans from an architect and then do later renovations as funding allows?
If that is how you can fund it, I would say yes. It cost me more the longer it drags on, which means if you tell me like, hey, I have like 3 phases of this project, phase 1 is this, phase 2 is this, and phase 3 is this. It costs me more money because when I go and I have to re-educate all my subs again, like, hey, do you remember this job we were working on a month ago? Now we have to go back. Do you remember we did this and that? It's going to cost more. I can't like put a specific number on it, but there would be additional costs to drag something on like that. Now, if that is what your budget allows, don't make it stop you, right? Just be upfront with how you're going to be handling it. Like, hey, I have 3 phases. And if the contract bid is in your budget, then do it, right? But it would cost more, yes.
Here's a question from Sherry. What's the kind of ballpark cost to remove a fireplace in a shotgun double that you wanted to convert to a single, if you're going to open up the walls in the living space? Yeah.
So those fireplaces, I have done them where they're like solid and there's thousands and thousands of bricks, and it's a lot of labor to pull that out of a house and kind of either sell them or put them in a dumpster or something like that. I mean, I'd say $1,000 for a big fireplace, but that's not to say you can't go and hire a laborer to do it for 2 days for $300 or $400 or something like that. But yeah, I mean, I'd say $1,000.
Okay. Well, yeah, and there's sort of the next question
That's just
actually relates to that, which is, to let people know in a few historic districts, you might actually not be allowed to remove the chimney that is visible, particularly from the front rooms of the Camelback, because it would be visible from the street and it would potentially be part of what's under the HDLC jurisdiction in some places, but not all. So we have a question about Mid-City. where the jurisdiction is basically focused on demolition. So the question is, do you need a certificate of appropriateness from the HDLC in order to add a camelback in Mid-City?
If you're in the HDLC controlled district, full, yes. They have partial and full control. So if you're in a full control district, you would need their certificate of appropriateness, yes.
Yeah. My understanding would be that if it's in a place like Mid-City or Uptown, it's based on a calculation of the amount of the roof that would be removed to make way for the camelback addition. So it could be very specific in some of those partial controls, whether you have to get permission to do a partial demo of the roof, they call it. But they'll tell you when you go permitting, or your contractor will be told when he goes to the permit office what steps to go through. So Craig's point about getting a contractor who's willing to go through the permitting is well made.
I haven't necessarily heard of that. Maybe I need to catch up on some reading. But my understanding, if you're doing exterior work, you need to get it approved through the HDLC if you're in their district. Partial. On the demo side, if you're not changing the front, again, you go talk to the staff and kind of see what their thoughts are on it. Sometimes staff level, they can let things go if you're, staying true to the house. So in a partial district, like talking to the staff can shed a lot of light.
Yeah, and to Craig's point about hiring an architect, if you hire an architect who has done that sort of a renovation in one of those districts, and they're going to know the guidelines HDLC has, and they can design something that fits within those guidelines, and you get the certificate that you need without headaches. All right. So we have another question here about working with the design build firm. How do you bid out the work with a design build project since you don't have plans yet? Any thoughts on that?
So a lot of people, they've seen my work and they come and say, hey, Craig, I like what you did at this property over here. I want this kind of thing. So I'm not an architect, right? And when any kind of renovation addition, I do typically refer people to the architect, but I get very involved with the layout of the property because I had the experience of walking through these and seeing these from start to finish. Like I've walked through, properties where we've torn down walls and I see okay, this is a big space. Whereas if your house can only fit, a bedroom that's 11 foot wide, well, is that a big enough bedroom? So I help in that phase and also in the finished look phase, picking out the cabinets, the paint colors, the light fixtures and other things along those lines. All that's free of charge, essentially included in the contract part. The architect obviously is not. But the design part comes in just, going through past work that I've done and helping pick out finishes and helping, decide on layouts and things along those lines.
Okay. Here's a question about sloping floors and uneven settlement.
Happens a lot.
What's the general approach if you're building an addition on an old house that maybe has already settled and has some sloping? Is it best to try and level out the existing floor? And is there a ballpark cost per square foot for leveling floors? Each case is different?
Yeah.
How does it work?
So the first thing you need to see is the property still settling. If it's still settling, you need to try and resolve that problem. Sometimes the settling can happen because you have bad drainage, you have gutter runoff or something that's causing erosion and the property to still fall. A lot of times, the property is 100 years old. Yeah, it settled a few inches after it was built, but it's stable. It's not moving anymore. So we wouldn't mess with the foundation, but you can shim up the foundation, the framing a little bit up or down to level that out. And I would recommend doing that, while you're doing any of the other work. Again, it's cheaper to have the framer or the foundation person come to your property one time and do everything as opposed to piecemealing it. So, yes. And then as far as cost wise, it's hard to say. Every house is different. I've had foundation fixes for $1,500 up to 15,000. If it's just a little small fix here or there, you don't have a ton of termite damage, there's not a lot of rot, you can get in and fix a pier, something like that for relatively cheap. If everything's eaten to toothpicks because there hasn't been a termite treatment on the property in 50 years, it's going to be expensive. But it needs to get done because just ignoring it is not going to make the problem go away. But first things first, make sure it is not settling anymore, that it's stable, and then you can kind of approach the problem from there.
All right. So Mary has a question here about a sort of a small scale renovation, like a bathroom. If you want to renovate your bathroom and move the sink or some of the other fixtures, is that the first step to talk to a general contractor or talk to a plumber? Which would you recommend for a project like that?
Yeah, so typically on moving lines, you're going to need more than just a plumber for something like that, right? You're going to have to cut drywall, so and then put it back in place and everything like that. So I don't have a problem with doing both, right? If you want to call the plumber and the contractor at the same time. Again, like the more bids you get, I think the more accurate your answers are going to be and the more educated you're going to be about it. But calling a contractor and saying, hey, I have a single vanity and I want to make it a double vanity because you have enough space or something like that. And, saying I want to put it here and I want to do this. So again, just giving as much information and as much detail as you can up front. Call a contractor. And the contractor should tell you hey, you really just need a plumber for this. If that's the case, call the guy on my list or look up somebody else online, right? Or call them both. And the more people you meet with, the more educated and the more information you're going to get. Contractors like to talk, ask questions, and listen, right? And hey, how would you fix this? Hey, how would you approach this? What would you do here? What are your thoughts? Ask those questions and just listen. And a lot of times, the more people you talk to, you'll get a good answer from somebody and figure out exactly what you have to do. And get bids.
Good advice. Here, Lauren has a question about adding a non-Camelback addition in a full control HDLC district like Bywater. Do you still need a certificate of appropriateness for that? If it's a rear addition?
Yes. Anything in full control. It's going to be easier to get through, but yes, you would still need their COA. Especially I know we have small property lines and properties are close by each other, but if from the street you can see any part of that roof or any part of that addition, they're going to have control over that. So you would need their blessing.
All right.
And look, they're great at the HDLC. Yes, it is a few extra steps, but if you go in and tell them what you're trying to do, the staff there, well, I guess you can't go in now, but you can email or call. You go to the One Stop Shop website, and there's a person specifically designed to your district. If you're in the Bywater, the Marigny, Uptown, anywhere, their phone number, their email address is listed on One Stop Shop. You can reach out to them and say, hey, this is my address. They'll pull it up on Google Maps, tell them what you're looking to do. They'll say, okay, you're going to need to do this, this, and this to get your certificate of appropriateness, right? So again, they're super helpful. And we're thankful that they're here because they preserve all the architecture. That's what makes New Orleans special, right?
Yes, excellent. Well said. And you have really teed us up, Craig, for our next two classes. Next week, we've got the same time slot on Tuesday, working with an architect and floor plan basics. So how to read those drawings when you get them from the architect.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then next Thursday, we've got our Navigating the HDLC class at noon, which we do in regular partnership with the city as a service to the community to help people maybe take some of that intimidation away from the HDLC and help people navigate the process and hopefully have an easy time of getting that required COA. I
I
think
see
we've,
some written questions in the Q&A. If we're done with the other ones, I'm going to type these out. If everyone wants to hang on for a second. Or is there any other questions that you had?
I think that,
Or you already read these?
I've read to you the ones that I can see. So if you feel like you have anything to add, please do.
You read them, actually. So thank
And
you. again.
I really appreciate your time, Craig, and all of our participants for hanging with us for an hour. And I think it's been time well spent, and appreciate your willingness to make your knowledge available and your recommendations. And yeah, folks should reach out to you if they might have a job and might have a question after
Yeah.
this.
Even if it's just for information, I'm happy to answer any questions or point you to the right direction, tell you who to talk to, who to call, anything like that. Just let me know.
Great. Thanks so much. Yeah, and a lot of thank yous in the chat box. So I know people have really appreciated it. I appreciate everyone for being here today. And I guess with that, we'll wrap up and hope to see you again soon.
All right. Appreciate it. Night.